Hey, Jessica here, and I am about to tell you the fundamental, most important thing that you need to know about recovering from addiction, any addiction. And it's also the most under talked about thing, while simultaneously the most important thing to know about. And so, what I'm about to tell you is also something that world renowned addiction recovery expert and trauma expert knows about. His name is Gabor Mate. And so he is a really great resource, a really good person to know about. And I'm going to share some cliff notes of what he has to say. And so essentially, addiction is not the problem. And in your case, pornography or anything under the sex-related addiction umbrella is not the problem. It is merely a symptom of the real problem, a symptom of some root cause, some emotional wound of the past that made your nervous system, your subconscious mind feel insecure, and therefore is reaching for some external escapism as a means of a false security blanket. This is the reason why pornography has been called the adult security blanket. But the more you learn about it, the more that you can apply that term to any addiction. Because addiction is really an escapism behavior from escaping from some stress response that we have within us. The number one trigger for relapse into any addiction is a stress response. The moment we get a twinge of feeling uncomfortable, the twinge of discomfort, that's called a stress response. It can be physical or it can be emotional. In most cases, it's emotional. And so, but physical pain is something that we want to escape from, and it doesn't feel good. So we're oftentimes compelled to choose the low-hanging fruit, the quick hit of dopamine, the thing that makes the pleasure centers in our brain skyrocket and light up, right? Those are temporary escapisms from your reality. And so in most cases, it can be emotions of loneliness or inadequacy or not feeling good enough or shame or anger or grieving or you name it. The list goes on and on. And essentially, indulging in these escapism behaviors does a temporary masking of the problem without solving the problem. And when the problem shows itself again, it's usually more intense because it's had time to fester. And your subconscious mind is saying, hey, deal with me, deal with me, deal with me. This is big, this is important. Don't just ignore me. And then it shows up again, and that's very uncomfortable. Then what do? Boom, you relapse into your escapism behavior of choice, of which there might be multiple. It might not just be pornography, right? And so that can be gaming, drinking, social media, YouTube binging, scrolling your phone mindlessly, emotional eating. These are all different forms of really common escapisms. And escapism is, hey, the subconscious mind says, ooh, I don't feel good. Let me escape this. You might not even have conscious awareness of it, because about 95% of who we are by the time we're 25 years old is pre-programmed it's a subconscious program that we've essentially programmed into ourselves through choices and behaviors as life happened, right? But it doesn't have to be set in stone. You rewrite the program so you react and respond and make new choices. And that's what this is all about, right? And so, what Gabor Mate says, world-renowned leading expert on addiction and trauma, and I wholeheartedly agree with him. And the more you learn about it, the more it absolutely makes sense. Addiction recovery at its core is really trauma recovery. It's really trauma recovery. Anyone who's not doing that, anyone who's missing that, it doesn't happen. If someone tries to just get rid of an escapism behavior and they say, look, I'm not addicted to pornography, but they didn't heal what was going on the inside in the subconscious mind, that the nervous system doesn't yet feel safe enough to let go of its grip on escapism behaviors. And so essentially what happens is the person will eventually go back to that same old addiction, in this case, pornography, or anything under the umbrella of a sex-related addiction. or they will switch to another addiction, another source of low-hanging fruit of dopamine that you can just get without having to really work for, right? And so this is big. This is really big, because if those deep emotional wounds of the past, whether you know what that's from or not, doesn't matter. You don't ever have to know what it's from. But if that's not resolved, then the subconscious mind will always want to escape. And this is what we call dopamine switching or addiction switching. It says, okay, well, you got rid of pornography and you're not letting me go back there. Let's just become addicted to gaming or online gambling or social media or Reddit or all of them together, or become an alcoholic, or, you know, there's an endless list of things to become addicted to really easily. And it happens every time. Switching your dopamine source or going back to the original addiction happens every time if those emotional wounds of the past that are living in the subconscious mind are not resolved. And so what we do here is, it's trauma healing at its core. Anyone who doesn't do that, you're not gonna ever solve the addiction problem, ever. It's just gonna come and go, come and go, come and go. It might show up in different forms. And so you might be thinking to yourself, like, yes, I resonate with everything you're saying and it makes sense. And some of you might be like, wait, what? I don't have trauma. But guess what? Trauma is extremely common, prevalent, and everywhere, and shows up in the forms that we don't really suspect or know about. There's the big obvious traumas, right? But most people have the non-obvious traumas. That's how I was my entire life. I didn't know I had childhood trauma until I was well into my 30s, and I had PTSD from a naturally occurring seafood neurotoxin that put a 19-millimeter lesion in the left front lobe of my brain. And it was a 5-year recovery journey, and I was off of work for years, and it spiraled me to have a sex addiction, hypersexuality disorder. For me, it was not pornography, it was real life partners. That was one of my many forms of escapisms, which also was external validation, is because of extremely subconscious low self-worth. And so just that was a little tangent there. But essentially, like for me, that trauma was obvious. Brain damage. Okay, the obvious traumas: brain damage, being sexually like molested, or escaping a burning building, or being a combat veteran, or a really gnarly car accident. These are super obvious, right? Super obvious traumas. Being like, you know, beaten by your father as a child. Obvious traumas, obvious traumas. The less obvious ones that are more common is not having your emotional needs met as a child. So this would be like if you had a narcissistic parent, if you were in a military family and moved around all the time, if you were bullied, if your parent had a codependency and still kind of has that going on. It can show up in the form of having a sibling who was special needs. And so your parents gave that sibling all of the attention and you were kind of neglected, even though your parents loved you, they didn't have time for you. And so anytime you have even one parent who's not emotionally available, these are examples that happen all the time, really common, really prevalent, that make the child who is experiencing that say, the subconscious mind of that child says, wow, I'm not lovable, I'm unworthy, I'm not worthy of their love and attention. And the subconscious mind, that's where the emotions live, that's where the emotions live within us. Essentially, that is a form of trauma, the most common form of trauma. And if a child doesn't emotionally resolve from that, then that child grows up to be an adult who still has that same level of insecurity in their nervous system, in their subconscious mind. And holy moly, watch the escapism behaviors show up like crazy, like crazy. And so you may or may not be resonating with this. I have a feeling that you do. And even if you don't, that's okay, because sometimes you don't ever actually have to know what happened in your past. Here's the beauty of this. Most people don't know this. You never have to have a memory of your past, either a single memory of one traumatic thing or a whole maybe childhood of a string of endless memories that contributed to this. You don't ever have to have a memory of what it was in your past that made your subconscious mind feel so insecure that it felt the need to escape through these escapism behaviors. And the only thing that actually matters is teaching your subconscious mind, your nervous system, how to feel safe again, or for some of you, for the first time ever, so that it no longer feels the need to escape, so that it no longer feels the need to escape reality. And this might resonate with you when I say this as well. Addiction is not about chasing the pleasure. It is about escaping from the pain. Addiction is not about chasing the pleasure. It is about escaping from the pain. And sometimes when we find ourselves in the pleasure, it is a temporary time to escape from the pain. And that's the only way that we've figured out how to escape from the pain. And the ultimate job of the subconscious mind is to have us not experience that pain, whether it's physical or emotional. And if we have not yet figured out, if you have not yet figured out how to do that internally, that self-regulation, that conjuring up and creating that sense of safety within your nervous system, within your subconscious mind, if you have not figured out how to do that yet, then you better believe that your subconscious mind is going to have you run towards some escapism so that I can escape it now, now, now. So this whole thing is about learning how to heal those deep emotional wounds of the past so that you can feel safe and secure in the present moment, in your subconscious mind, in your nervous system. No matter what life throws at you, no matter what's happened in the past, you can say, I got this. I'm solid. I'm strong. I know how to self-regulate. I know how to overcome this and get through it. Watch me. That's what this journey is about. And so it's rewriting all that subconscious programming that says, I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. I haven't been taught this. What do I do? The only thing I know how to do is to run away and escape. And that creates an enormous disconnection from ourselves, which then topples into a disconnection from other people, because we can only be as connected to other people as we are first to ourselves. It's okay if that doesn't make sense yet. It will make sense if you continue to work with me on this. So, okay, this was a very important message, and some of you may have heard this before. If you have heard this before, you are in that extremely tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of self-awareness with this. For most of you, this is your first time hearing this, and that's okay. That's okay. You needed to hear it at some point in order to move forward with your recovery. And it's a good thing to know that this is such a big thing that I've had a handful of licensed therapists themselves, when they themselves are addicted and could not figure out how to escape their own addiction. And they've reached out to me asking for help, saying, Jessica, I have to keep this on the hush hush, because if people found out that me as a licensed therapist am clueless on how to overcome this, then my career would be ruined. Can you please help me? And I said, yes, with open arms, open doors. Let me show you the ropes. Okay, same thing with church pastors. I've had church pastors come and tell me the same thing. That have been church pastors for decades and say, Jessica, please help me with this. And I cannot allow my community to find out. And so this is big, this is huge, this is addiction recovery, but it's really at its core, it's trauma recovery. And let me tell you, we go deep, it is holistic, it is comprehensive, because if it is not, you're going to be playing addiction whack-a-mole, and those different escapisms are just going to pop back up or running back to the same old one. And that's not how we do things here. That is not how we do things here, okay? And it is so important that you know this. It is so important that it sinks in. And if there are parts that are still fuzzy and don't make sense, that's okay. You get clarity when you work with me in this program. This program was developed from overcoming severe PTSD and addiction. And really, it's focusing on healing the trauma, that trauma part of it. When we focus on that, watch the addictions just go away, because the subconscious mind says we don't need them anymore. We found something much better to replace it with. So I think I will leave you at that. And I never thought that this is what I would be doing with my life. I'm a former wildlife biologist. I used to spend my days hiking in the redwood forest with my machete, with my dog, and hooting for owls in the ancient redwood tree forest and finding them. And now I help men overcome sexual addictions through trauma healing. That's the core of it. And I could not be happier with what I do. This is a blessing. This is an honor. This is my calling. I like to say that the greatest gift the universe ever gave me is brain damage and addiction and trauma and PTSD, because it finally gave me such a solid, strong purpose. And I've never looked back, and it is so amazing. And so let's do this. Let's do this. Are you ready? Buckle up and get ready for an upgrade, because this is a journey of a lifetime. This is a journey of a lifetime. Okay, signing off. Jessica Jordan here.